gonna leave that. Okay. All right, check. All right, so yeah, we are live on YouTube here. Welcome to B.C.S. Blacksmith channel, and we got a bunch of members from the Minnesota Guild of Metalsmiths on here as well. So yeah, we're going to be doing a live stream. So we're just going to be waiting for a few people to jump in. We had about 34 before, so I'll wait till we get to like the mid 20s, and that'll kind of show that everyone's here. But yeah, we'll be getting started in a little bit. Yep. The link is in their chat for the Zoom meeting. So. What was that? Nope. Should stay all there. I mean, I'm sure we'll get to. Oh, we went down. Oh, we're back at 13. Oh, we're getting people. I'm sure Mark will give you a phone call or something if we're doing something wrong. Yeah, whatever you want to do, Brendan. It's kind of up to you as well. But yeah, if you want to have Justin start now.
You want to start? Go for it.
Well, I'm Justin Klayeski. I'm a horseshoer by trade, so don't consider myself a blacksmith. We work a little different on the anvil than most of the blacksmiths do, so you might see some different things that are a little unfamiliar to you guys as blacksmiths, but are very common for us as horseshoers, a lot tighter. I think that just comes with our occupation. Working on horse feet, we tend to be curled up kind of over top of our workpiece all the time. So we're going to be making a horseshoe from a piece of bar stock. We're just going to make a simple plate shoe, and then if we have time, we'll draw a clip on it, which is pretty simple. So drawing a shoe first, you will figure out your length. And the most basic thing to do is you're going to start with bending the toe of your shoe. We'll make this one as a front shoe. You'll use the round part of your rounding hammer. We brace into our leg typically, and we always clench our fire tongs. Start bending in the toe. We'll be getting somewhere near 80-degree bend in the toe. And typically on a front shoe, we don't like to go more than that just because we actually will bend a lot of the rest of the material around the bar. So once you get your bend in, you'll find us rolling our hammer a lot because we're going to use the round while we're bending, and then we'll use the flat just to flatten. So you have your bend in the shoe. You're going to throw that shoe in the forge and prepare to make your branch. Branch would be the side of the shoe. So with a fresh cut chunk of iron, you're going to have to go ahead and put a heel check in that shoe. And with a heel check, we're going to basically take that piece of iron, put it up on end, and we're going to be driving in over the top of it. It'll be hard to see on the camera, but that's how we present one of those shoes. I'll probably grab another chunk of iron and start another toe, just so we can have something to keep working with here. We do center punch most of our bar stock just so that we know where the center point is. So all of this bar stock, I actually do have a center punch already on the iron. Unlike a lot of the blacksmiths also, typical horseshoer, we really only carry flat tongs in our shoeing rigs. So flat iron only, we don't use any box tongs with the exception of a set of hot fitting tongs, which what we will do with those is you will grab your horseshoe by the nail holes. When it's red hot, you go to the horse, burn it on the foot. We don't have a horse here, so we won't be doing that. But that's a set of hot fitting tongs. preparing the heel check, you will often get a lot of fish lip on the end of the iron, so that we just have to manage. And at the same time that we do that heel, we can bend that branch and start shaping the side of that shoe. Flat iron is always easier for us to work with, so that's why you'll see us constantly grabbing and spinning that iron. Heat management seems to be the biggest concern when you're making a shoe. A lot of the blacksmiths do not like to work black iron. Horseshoeing, we're working mild steel. We do punch a lot of black iron, even if it's not acceptable. Those two are heating up. So we'll just grab a third piece and get another started. I'm going to bend that last branch. That would be getting pretty close to just our basic shape of a front shoe. Front feet and hind feet are different in a horse. So typically a front foot is going to be a lot more round, where if you step into a hind foot, you're going to see a shoe that's more of a diamond shape. A lot of the shoes we get in our job are not really a front shape or a hind shape. They're somewhere in the middle. When you run into that, this is why we shape every shoe that goes on a horse's foot. So we'll just alter the toe, shape the branches. Keg shoes are still the most efficient way to do our job. So we do just buy most of our shoes.
So we got a question in the chat that wants to know, do you typically make a lot of shoes at one time, or do you do them custom for every horse?
Every shoe is going to be different for every horse. So there's a bunch of different sizes. We can go anywhere from a triple aught or 4-aught all the way up to a size 6, size 7, or 8 even in a draft horse. So you're going to get a lot of different sizes. Typically when I do make shoes for a horse, I'm going to make a full set of shoes for the horse all the way around. I toss all my iron in the fire. I know the horse's feet. I know what sizes they are. And typically I can get that shoe pretty darn close to the shape of that particular horse's foot with every heat. So punch the heel again. We just manage some of the fish lip on there. I don't get too carried away with it because ultimately I'm going to take that shoe over to a grinder and I'm going to do most of the finish work at the grinder. So that first shoe is good and hot. From there, we would end up punching our nail holes. So we've got a nail hole punch, and we just know where we like it on that horse. And the nail punch will actually have a totally different feel once you get to the point where you've actually set it in deep enough. The sound will also get a lot more hollow when you drive that. So once the heads are all punched, usually throw it back into the fire, get yourself a little extra heat, and then you actually punch your pritchel all the way through the shoe. horseshoe that already had the nail holes or nail heads punched. Move over to the pritchel hole, take our pritchel, finish punching those nail heads. Those nails don't seem to want to come through. Typical work anvil in the trailer has a much smaller pritchel hole than this anvil does. Also, horseshoeing anvils, a lot of the blacksmiths don't care for because we like really sharp corners on the anvil. But a big part of that is we actually use our anvils a little different. We do a lot of cutting on the edge of our anvil, and then we also will use that to draw clips and make sharp corners on a shoe. So black iron, a lot of you wouldn't want to bend it. I'll take it up here, I'll bend it and flatten it. Doesn't bother me a bit.
We got another question from the chat that wants to know what or who got you into horseshoeing.
What or what?
What or who got you into horseshoeing?
I actually got into shoeing horses out of necessity. One of my horses got hurt real bad when I was about 18, and I could not find a horseshoer to save my life. So I did the next most logical thing. I got mad and I went to school. And I found out I liked to do the job. I was good at it, and people pay me well. So I took up the occupation. This shoe we're just going to back punch real quick since we have the time. And back punching these holes will also give the nail a lot more room to come through the shoe without actually cutting into the nail. So for all practical purposes, this would be a near completed shoe with the exception of checking the heels, which we obviously can't do that until we have the grinder up and running, and we're not going to do that while it's hot. So what we'll do is we'll actually draw a clip on that first shoe. So drawing a clip on a shoe, might do this if you had a horse with really weak hoof walls and you needed just a little extra structure to help hold that on. This is where we typically like our real sharp cornered anvils. My anvil, my work trailer, I would actually work right up by the horn right here. This particular anvil is pretty rounded there. So I'm going to go up back to the heel of this anvil. And we are going to call that a failed clip. Couldn't draw quite enough material up out of that one, so we'll throw her back in the forge. Go.
We do have a couple questions from the chat whenever you're ready.
Yeah, go for it.
All right. One person wants to know, when is a shoe considered worn out?
Typically, you'll see on a worn out shoe, the metal to the front of the shoe will get down to a thin point where it actually gets almost sharp. Then that shoe is typically worn out. Otherwise, there are even times where the nail heads get to the point where they're worn out so thin that the nail head of the shoe will actually wear right in. Yeah. Yeah, this shoe, hard to see, but through the front of the shoe, it starts getting thin in comparison to a shoe that's at full thickness. So just a different, just wear. And the actual nail heads themselves will start to wear off and get thin.
The other question is wondering if you make your own tools.
I don't make my own tools. I did work with Brendan Stevens and built a hammer. I haven't started using it yet. But bottom line, your time is worth something, and mine is better spent under a horse, so I don't make many of my own tools. Pretty much all keeping that shoe from sliding back or shearing nails.
Yeah, suggestion from the chat said you could try the anvil with sharper corners that your tools are sitting on if you're going to take another shot at it. But
Even those are pretty round.
On the back of them.
The heel of that one, yeah. I will give this one a whirl. I think we got one shoe that we haven't destroyed yet.
Yeah, none of my handles are super sharp.
Blacksmiths, not horseshoers. And my cross peen. There's the spot. A little bit better.
we've got another question in the chat that wants to know what exactly does the clip do?
Helps prevent the shearing of nails. So if a horse is big enough or the hoof wall is thin enough, the shoe will actually shift on the foot, even with the nails through it. So if the horse has clips on that shoe, it helps keep that pressure from that horse being able to actually slide off the shoe. Or you might just have a horse that's pretty talented and they sit really hard or turn hard, and there's just a lot of weight on those nails for 6 little nails to hang onto that shoe. So checking the heels. So just a simple plate shoe with no clip. You'd have typically anywhere from 6 to 8 nail holes in there. And then one often overlooked aspect of the shoe is what we call checking the heels, which is actually just cutting a bevel into the heels. And that allows dirt, debris, rocks to actually push free of the foot from the backside. That's a pretty simple and basic shoe, though.
Another question from the chat wants to know what happens to the feet of a wild horse without shoes on it.
True wild horses have, over generations, natural selection. Horses with the weakest feet die. They get eaten. Horses with feet that are too strong and don't break off properly come up lame. They die. They get eaten. So the optimum horses, ones with hard enough feet but not too hard, are going to be the horses that survive the best, because they will chip off or wear off their foot as they grow. Wrong hammer for the job. So, talking about moving cold iron, so cold shoe, what we would call a typical keg shoe. Like I said, a lot of the blacksmiths, you don't care much for the fact that a horseshoe would move cold iron. This is what we do every day. Cold iron, this is kind of a shoe in between a front shoe or in between a hind. So I want this to be a front shoe. I'm going to want to open up the toe, create more of a broad or flatter toe. But then we start getting way too wide through the branches, real straight. Then you take that shoe, flip it around. You will get to the point when you do this that you just learn how each type of metal moves, each brand, how thick it is, you know how hard you hit. And typically while I'm doing this, I'm also holding up a horse's leg, which is why this stand is so low, because I'd be working in a position about like here, so I just lean over, shape the shoe. Now this horseshoe went from being a shape that was kind of in between a front or in between a hind, and we completely changed the shape. So those that say you can't move black steel, you just haven't tried it enough. Big thing there is hammer positioning, using leverage, knowing how that metal is going to move on the surfaces you're working on.
Another question from the chat wants to know, do your customers watch you work?
Typically, customers are almost always there. It's kind of a liability thing. You want to have the customer there. That way, if something goes haywire, horse acts stupid, they're there to witness it. You don't want to be stuck out there working by yourself. You don't want to get hurt. And you also don't want that liability of them saying, you hurt their horse when the horse did something stupid to itself. We can't stop every accident. And you can tell I'm out of practice of doing hand-drawn clips, because almost everything we do is hand-bought and keg shoes. So we'll fix the shape of this shoe a little bit since it got a little wonky. Also, our horseshoe and anvils, pretty rare that we run something with this wide of a face. Big reason is just spinning those horseshoes around and trying to flatten anything. If I can't get my tongs on it, I have a tough time flattening it, especially with a clip. We don't worry too much about quenching our hot steel because, again, it's mild steel. It doesn't change shape or size a whole lot. You will run into, if you're doing a large draft horseshoe, just the quenching process, the cooling process of that iron, it will shrink up enough that it will visibly change the size of that shoe on a horse's foot. So if you can't draw as pretty of a clip as the store-boughts, you cheat and you go to a grinder. So a less than ideal clip, but a clip nonetheless, function over fashion. This would suffice in the field or on the job. Anything else you want me to touch on there, Brendan?
Covered it.
All right. Is there any other questions that anybody has? Feel free to throw those in the chat. Otherwise, yeah, we're kind of wrapped up.
Can we get a close-up on the tool?
Yeah, let's get a close-up on the tool. That cord is not very long, but we've got a bigger zoom lens too, so you can always zoom in. Do a close-up on that. You want to know more of an overview? Yeah, I can't really. Not really able to do that with how things are set up.
Oh.
I sure hope so.
The rest of those are just pritchels. They're all the same. They're just in case you break one.
I will zoom this out because now you're very close. So okay, you're gonna be too close for that lens to focus. Or if you want to go in that close, come in on this side.
Okay.
If that's how you want to hold it, let's do this.
All right, so see, this guy here is the
Nail head punch.
Nail head punch. Nice V shape. And then this right here is a pritchel.
Just for the shaft of the nail. And then simple tongs, flat tongs, and fire tongs for actually hot fitting to the horse's foot.
Go grab a shoe and show them that.
One other question from the chat wants to know if you do other blacksmithing work outside of shoeing horses.
I like making knives, but that's about all I do. So that shoe would be at a red heat. We'd actually take it over to the horse's foot and then sear it onto the foot, making a completely perfect surface between the foot and the shoe. Everybody's worried that that's going to hurt the horse. It doesn't as long as you don't burn, and it also kills a lot of bacteria in the foot. So I do a lot of hot fitting. I also do a lot of cold shoeing. So either way, whatever works for that particular horse, that particular situation.
And then those tongs can also hold the shoe in the nail hole by the bit, right?
If we're working on a big draft horseshoe, we might actually hang on to it like that so we can use two hands, pull and sear that shoe onto the horse's foot.
All right. Awesome. Well, yeah, there are no more questions in the chat here, so that kind of wraps up this demonstration. I'll go ahead and end the stream here, and yeah, we can jump back into the Zoom meeting like you asked, Mark.